It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for April 19th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Kindgom Come is back, and Donkey Kong isn't going to get off his lazy ass until later this year. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Jason Fanelli, everybody. Jason, how are you doing?
I am fantastic. There are a lot of questions in chat, and I will answer them shortly.
You're dressed as Mario from NES Open Golf.
I am. This is, so my theater, my local community theater group, our show opens tonight. This is my costume for the Barbershop Quartet. I figured we're here. You invited me. I have to make sure it feels well anyway. So that's why I'm dressed like NES Open Tournament Edition. You know, it's a Dregs Day. I told you I was going to brighten up your Dregs Day. I'm going to do it with red, white, and blue.
Lexi says that there's no questions, just confusion. I don't get that. This is simply how Americans dress. This is how we go out. This is our go out attire. Hey, speaking of Lexi, congratulations on finishing college. Well done.
Yeah, good work. Yeah. Good work.
Shout out to you.
Go back. It's all downhill from here.
Run back quick. Save yourself.
Save yourself.
Absolutely. No, but congratulations. But yeah, okay. So this is the costume. Are you like, you're going to wear it all day, or is it just for us and you're going to take it off again and then get back in it?
That one, because so we're doing The Music Man. Not sure if you're familiar with that particular musical. If you remember the Family Guy episode where he joined the Patriots and he did that whole celebration, the song Shapoopy, that's from The Music Man. It's probably the most culturally relevant thing it's done in a while. So in the first, I'm part of like the school board, these four guys who hate each other. And through the power of music, we learn to love each other and sing Barbershop at the same time. So this is actually the Act 2 set. The Act 1 set is just a normal. Okay. The vest is right there. I don't know if you could see it. I saw it might be off camera. So I just wear like a normal black suit with a different vest, and we slowly evolve into a Barbershop Quartet.
That's fantastic. That sounds like a good time.
Well, fun.
Yeah. Good luck. Or I'm sorry, break a leg. Absolutely.
Do you know why that saying exists?
My understanding is something to do with Macbeth.
Well, no, Macbeth is cursed. If you do Macbeth
is cursed. Okay. They're
no,
just similar ideas in my brain.
They say break a leg at auditions because if it goes well, you'll be in the cast.
Wow, that's crazy. I just assumed it was like reverse psychology stuff where it's like, you instead of saying good luck, you wish something bad on someone. So if that happened, I get, okay, that is nuts. All right, wow,
that's it.
You blew my mind. How are you doing otherwise?
Doing great. Just been busy with writing stuff, busy with this. It's Lexi says I'm now jinxed because I said Macbeth. I said it again. No, yeah, things are great. Getting excited for the summer season. The game mess is approaching approaching sharp quickly. The schedule is filling up for play days. Very excited about that. And yeah, got some stuff to talk about here on a Friday.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I got a handful of appointments scheduled. I am going to go into my email later today and get the rest scheduled because we don't have like a ton of time because we're busy like on Sunday with stuff. Monday, probably going to be doing something else. So we'll be able to get back to play days. So it's like Saturday's it. So I'm like, and I know that's going to fill up the quickest. So I'm going to get in there today, get all those appointments done and set. And then we'll figure out who's doing them from Giant Bomb later. So it's like, okay, that's plan one. And then I really am just I continue to side eye all of the work I need to do to actually book the couch. It's like one thing to have people be like, I would love to be on there. I'm like, yeah, okay, we can, that is awesome. Now I need to like herd all of you cats toward the couch with like helpful information and making sure everyone knows like, oh, is there parking validation, stuff like that, things I'm terrible at. So we'll get to it. We'll get it all figured out. But I got to just like, instead of keeping it in the side eye, I just got to take it on, grab the bull by the horns and all that stuff. It's going to be a good time though. Summer Game Fest is going to be great.
Can't wait.
Yes.
Yeah, you got this. We appreciate you,
Jason. Jason, I appreciate that. All right, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help you piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You could always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You could also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's get started with the morning mess with Kindgom Come Deliverance 2 will be twice as big and more diverse. I did not put the E there at the end of diverse, so I almost said divers. It has more divers in this one. This is from Ethan Gotch over at Kotaku. Warhorse Studios announced Kingdom Come Deliverance II, the sequel to an ambitious and intriguing 2018 medieval RPG that had plenty of technical flaws and also became a lightning rod for controversy over its director's comments about race and historical accuracy. The development team is promising the next game, which will release in 2024, will be much bigger and feature a wide range of ethnicities this time around. It's coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PC, and they didn't say whether that's through Steam or Epyx or anything like that. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 will once again put players in the boots of Henry of Skalitz as his quest for revenge over revengeance. He's gonna have a sword and get sliced watermelons in any way he wants. Over the killing of his family sows chaos in 15th century Bohemia in Central Europe. A new trailer shows the game's larger scope and grim realism in action. I think, yeah, Kingdom Come Deliverance did pretty well. I'm not surprised that they're going back to it. I'm also not surprised that they're like, it's going to be more diverse this time. We just don't even want to deal with that controversy. Although I'm sure they would have sold just fine whether they, harbored that controversy or not. But yes, that's nice to hear. Are you someone who's excited about a Kingdom Come Deliverance 2?
This game has always been one of those games on my backlog where I'm like, you know what? I really should start that. And then 55 other games come out and I'm buried even further. But it's always been one that's been on like my fringe. Like, I do want to try this. It seems like an interesting setting. It's first person too, which you don't really get from a medieval game like this.
Right.
So it's one I do want to check it out. Will this sequel be the thing to make that happen? I don't know. If time allows, maybe. But I also like that I don't want to say a smaller game, but like if we're doing the AA, AAA thing, when this game first came out, it was certainly a AA sort of like,
yes,
not AAA super like highest budget sort of game. So the fact that it sold enough and succeeded enough to get a sequel, especially in the current climate where you don't know if your game's ever going to be successful, I'm happy with that. I'm glad that they're able to do this. They were able to make it happen, and soon, coming out this year, 2024. I thought for sure when this was first teased, they'd be saying 2025, but no, it sounds like they're going to make the end of the year.
Sounds like they're planning to get it out this year. And you're right. Like, it's nice to see someone be able to like make an idea that feels way ambitious, like way too ambitious in a lot of ways, and be like mostly deliver on it and to a point where it can succeed. And then have a chance to go out and try it again, which is exactly what they say they're going to do here. What we are making now is what Kingdom Come Deliverance was supposed to be in the beginning. But we were not able to do it because we didn't have enough resources and experience. And that's from creative director Daniel Vavra. That's like, okay, I know exactly that feeling where it's like you try something, you figure out all the things that you did wrong the first time, and you're like, okay, we're going to go and do it again, and this time bigger and better and fix a lot of the problems we had the first time around. That's one way that we get a lot of these indie sequels where it's like, yeah, we want to do things right this time. Sometimes you get it's like, we kind of nailed it, so we're going to change things up and make a 3D game as a sequel to our 2D game. I like that as well, but I appreciate when a studio has a chance to do something like this. I also do appreciate for real that they're like, there will be more diversity, because the idea that the distance between Bohemia, like where that's located, and the continent of Africa is like less than from like me to like Tennessee.
It's not far.
It's not far. Just like the law of large numbers is going to dictate there would have been some people of color walking around here and there in that part of the world at all times throughout the history of the world. So whenever people try to like do that whole like there were no people of color in that part of the world at that time, it's like that's just ahistorical. So you're trying to say historical accuracy, and then you say something like that, it's like it just kind of sounds like casual racism to me. So now they're coming out and stating that that will be different this time, and so okay, well, I'll give them a chance. I did play that Kingdom Come Deliverance a little bit originally when it came out, and I got those vibes. Now, of course, it could have been colored by the controversy at the time, but I got the vibes that this was a game kind of made by dude bros, and it had like a broy vibe about its story, where it's, it's like four dudes that kind of palling around throughout the beginning of the game, and you go and you deal with one character, and I just remember being so annoyed that's like the character that you deal with has a wife, and his wife's name is just that character's wife, and she's like, she didn't have a name, and it's like these things are sticking out to me because of the controversy, but it's also just kind of like make some improvements there, do a little bit better, and I hope that they actually do this time. So we'll see.
Yeah, wow. I wonder if it's more of a just get a synopsis on YouTube sort of thing now. I'm hoping that, you talked about sequels and the second game being what the first game should have been. A very famous example of that, I think, is Assassin's Creed. So if that can follow that trajectory and become like what it was to like a more improved, more streamlined version of the initial vision, now with, hopefully no controversy, just keep your feet out of your mouth and say what you did. I think I'm cautiously optimistic about this one. The dude bro thing, if that continues, that's an issue. Just give everybody a name. It's not that hard. If I tried to say that my wife was just Jason's wife, she'd slap me, and rightfully so. So, I mean, just give people names. It's not that hard. But I'm hoping that this works out for them. I always like when a game, can build itself into a strong IP with regular releases. And if the first one sets the table and the second one is able to eat, let's do it.
Yep, exactly. And it's I know it seems like there's a lot of people working on this game that really care about it. I hope they're able to deliver something that is interesting and fun. And at the very least, I think it continues to be a sign that these games are possible by studios of all different shapes and sizes. And you can make an open world game that, this is a very popular game on Nexus mods. It's got a ton of mods and things. It's like, that used to be just the realm of a game like Skyrim, and indie games wouldn't really get that full treatment. But this did, and it's like, okay, that at the very least is promising in the way that, as we go forward, and a game like Fallout 5 seems so impossibly far away. We're going to be in a world where it's much more likely that studios inspired by those games are going to be able to get them out in slightly smaller variations here more and more frequently. And that's exciting to me as someone who's like, I like open world first person RPGs of all, no matter the setting. And if that's something that these teams feel like comfortable making, that's exciting.
Yeah. One of the more recent games that I have 100% completed, like I was driven to 100% complete, was Amalur. Let's talk about controversy with an open world game. Let's talk about that guy. But I loved that world. I loved the way it played. I loved the fiction within it. So if Deliverance 2 can sort of emulate that sort of feeling in me. Now that was third person. I don't know if first person will really make a difference in that regard, but I guess there's more of a realistic bent to this with it being first person. But if this could engender in me what what Amalur did back in 2012, I couldn't stop playing that, man. I went through 75, 80 hours in like a week and a half. I thought it was awesome. So I mean, if the potential is there and I give it a shot and I really like it, then that'll be awesome. But I feel like the main issue is the one that they set back in the first game. You got to show us some more of the world, show us that diversity, let us talk to people, and please God, if you're going to have more diversity, how do I say this with tact? I think what people know what I mean. Just be respectful. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Like if you add
just consider it.
Yes, just consider it. Don't be dumb about it, please.
Yes.
It's I know that's a hard thing to ask in this day and age. Don't be dumb, but just don't be dumb.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing where that is where consultants, the big scary word, they come in and they can provide perspectives that you may not have. But even if it just shows a little consideration from a small team that can't afford consultants, I don't know, they probably can. But if it's like something that just shows like you spend a little time thinking about these characters and they're not just background. That goes a long way. Last thing, this is, it's a historically set RPG. I love fantasy games, love sci-fi games. I think we forget, we could just set games in the real world in the past or present, whatever, and that they could also just be an RPG like Skyrim. This game is also proving that is the case in a way that's bigger than, recent examples like Pentiment, a great game that I love. Historical RPG was like, but we're going to scale that down so we can make that make sense. And this is like, no, we're going to try to look as every bit like a Skyrim as possible. And so, okay, that also gets me excited. I hope more studios look to historical settings for their games going forward. All right, moving along here. Microsoft has more games on PlayStation Store's top 25 than Sony. This is from Jonas Mackey at Game Reactor. Microsoft's gaming program got a lot bigger last fall when they bought Activision Blizzard, and in combination with the fact that they now have released a handful of older titles, Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Grounded, and shortly Sea of Thieves, to competing formats, something we've never seen before has happened Thursday on PlayStation. Tweaktown journalist Derek Strickland noticed that there are now more Microsoft games in the top 25 of the most sold titles via the PlayStation Store than Sony has. A clear sign of how big Microsoft actually is in the gaming world today, but also proof how important Sony is to them. And I think that last sentence right there is kind of it. Like, Jason, when we look at this, do you feel like one side of this console war is benefiting more from this than the other? It's like, who's winning? The fact that Sony's now getting money from these games that are on their platform, or Microsoft's now getting money from selling these games on another platform? Seems like everybody's winning to me. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree 1,000%. This is not as surprising as it should be at first glance. I liken this to like a sports radio headline where they just try to like. I'm not saying they're creating a story to rile people up, but this is the kind of thing that will just rile people up. When in reality, both sides are winning. Like you said, Microsoft has games ranking on another platform. Sony's getting the money from those purchases. And honestly, it makes sense because they're all still new, right? This is all, we're not even a year out from the first edition of Microsoft to PlayStation. Of course they're going to be up in the top of the 25 because people
and a big
who
part
are
of
only
this is Fallout as well. Like Fallout, a lot of those Fallout games are ranking on PlayStation as well. So it's like
that's right.
All that working together has got them to this point. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so it makes perfect sense for this. If you think it through logically and try to not have that jump reaction. If you're an Xbox fan, you'd be like, "Haha, Sony, we got you," or if you're a Sony fan, you'd be like, "No, this can't happen." It just makes perfect logical sense. Now, there is a way that Sony can alleviate this, and it's very simple. Release games. Just bring some games out to unseat these from your top 25 list, and you won't have a problem because that lull that they're in right now isn't helping either. The PlayStation fan base wants something to play, and if Microsoft is the one that's going to provide it to them, where else can they go, right?
Exactly.
So it all makes perfect sense to me. I hope everybody is enjoying these games they didn't get to play before and will enjoy Sea of Thieves. That'll become number 8 on the list, I'm sure. And, Sony, they want to do this, start making more games or start, buying studios like Microsoft did, because let's be honest, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are from acquisitions. I mean, or 5, I guess. From
actually, all of them are, because it's Call of Duty, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Grounded, Minecraft, Overwatch 2, and Sea of Thieves. I mean, Sea of Thieves is rare, but that was an acquisition, 25 years ago. But it was still an acquisition. Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, but that also doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, like, these are Microsoft published games now, and that's just how it works. And Sony. So those are the 7 games on the list. Sony has 5. You're right. Sony's going to start releasing games again at some point, and that'll deal with this. But it's like, in the meantime, I struggle to see how. I get when people look at the Xbox console. They're like, well, this is another reason not to get the Xbox console. And you're right. It's over. I don't know what else do you want people to say. They're not going to stop making those consoles, but that is not the thrust anymore. I mean, we could say it over and over and over again that that's not the number they're looking at, the number of consoles sold. That's not the future that they are envisioning, a world where everyone has an Xbox, and so they are just raking in money from people buying stuff on Xbox. Xbox is going to be one potential place to play these games. PlayStation is going to be another, and that's just how it's going to be. So if you keep looking at through that prism of, well, this means people are going to buy fewer Xboxes, yeah. If you put that to the side, the way Microsoft obviously has, then okay, now what is the shortcoming here? What is the problem? What is the negative? And it's very hard to even paint one of those if you try really hard, Jason, right?
No, not at all. I mean, as someone as Doomsday Dan just put in the chat, every screen is an Xbox now if you want it to be. Whether sometimes that screen will have a PlayStation attached to it, but you'll be playing Xbox games on it. The more that they sort of, I don't want to say completely distance themselves, because they're not. They're still going to make those consoles for the Xbox faithful, the people who just like that ecosystem more. There will always be a market for that. But the more that they make that a complement rather than the full focus of their gaming strategy, the more it's just going to pay dividends, not only for them, but for the consoles that are hosting these games too. It's a win-win. There's really no other way to look at it unless you're blinded by blue or green loyalty. It's a win-win everywhere.
Yep. I think that for Sony, here's the other thing I'm thinking then. Competition. Do you think that this increases the sense of competition that PlayStation has, where they're like, oh man, we got to put out more games because Microsoft's selling more stuff than we are on our own platform? Or do you think this lessens the need to be because hey, now we are getting money from these games, we can sit back and sort of just put out our games when they're ready? How do you feel about the state of competition between Microsoft and Sony?
I think both of those things apply. One is what they're going to say. They're going to say, "Oh, Microsoft's coming in. Under Armour, we must protect this house." They're going to start developing more games and releasing more games. But behind closed doors, in the boardroom, in the C-suite, they're going to be like, "Heck yeah, we're getting money from. No matter what we do, we're getting money. So we're going to let this ride. They can have their fun. And hey, maybe the Sony people are enjoying Microsoft's games too, and don't want to say that out loud. Maybe they're having fun. They're just. It's. I don't think. I don't think the impetus on competition is as prevalent in the C-suites as it is on social media. I'll put it that way.
Right. And I think that the competition doesn't, it really hasn't come from, Xbox versus PlayStation for quite some time, even though I think that's the way the companies still both set it up at the beginning of this generation. Even then, they knew that the real competition was always coming from people's time being divided among a million other hobbies they could be spending their time with, or just, scrolling on their phone. Every minute someone scrolls on TikTok is just like they probably see a percentage point less of like the likelihood that they're spending money on video games on a console. And so the competition to get people's attention has actually never been like greater. It's never been more of a problem for these companies. And so they've always, that's why they're spending so much money on these games and taking so much time, because they have to do so much to make them stand out. And even if Xbox evaporated from the face of the planet, with everything that now entails, PlayStation would still have to be doing a ton of stuff to get people's attention and get excited to go buy a console to play these games. So it's like, yeah, I'm not worried about competition overall.
Yeah, and if you wanted to even make that, like zoom in that conversation on strictly the gaming industry, they may feel that like a Fortnite or a Roblox or one of those big live service games that will never die is competition, even though it's on their own console. Because if you're going to try and release a first party live service game like Sony was 12, like they canceled a bunch of them, they have to beat them in order to get the players in their game. So it's almost like it's coming from all sides as far as the attention grabbing competition is concerned. They don't have time for the Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo console war anymore because it's increasingly irrelevant, even more than it already was.
Yep. And I think it was beneficial for them at the beginning of the generation because that makes it easy to tell a story of like, hey, you have to have this thing, so we're gonna have these games, and the other guys don't. But once that sort of fades to the background a little bit, the competition remains, and I think they have a little bit harder time explaining like their place in the market when they don't have a direct competitor to like compare themselves to. But I don't think it's some impossible task or anything like that. And and to be fair, they are still there. They are still competing in a lot of ways. All right. You know what? We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we got a lot more headlines to get to, including what's happening with Starfield while Fallout's getting all this love, and a lot more, including Donkey Kong being lazy, right after this.
Lazy Donkey Kong.
All right, we're back. And I got to remember to turn on this other scene because I like have our names on here now, so it looks weird if I have the overlay with our names and the headline on the screen for the intro. It'd be like right in the middle of it. So I'm like, okay, I'll turn that on with the 2-up screen that I have, and I never remember to switch over to that scene. I'm gonna get in the habit of that. That's gonna start Monday, everybody. We're gonna do better. I promise.
Remind him in the chat.
Remind me in the chat.
Switch that thing on.
Yes, switch on the overlay. All right, next headline here. Starfield will get some really good updates soon, says Todd Howard. This is from Grace Benfell at GameSpot. In a recent interview, Todd Howard said that new, really good updates for Starfield will be announced soon. He shared no other details on what these updates could be. In conversation with IGN, Howard discussed what Bethesda is working on currently. He said that the primary development focus is currently on Elder Scrolls 6, though updates for Fallout 76 continue. He hedged on saying any specific details about Fallout 5, saying, "I'm going to avoid putting dates on anything," which we talked about yesterday. Finally, he said that we're doing a lot of Starfield work as well, so we have some really good updates that are going to get announced soon for that game. Yeah, I mean, does it feel like Starfield reached a threshold where if in 5 years they announce they're making a new one, people will be excited? If they announce they're making a TV show in 5 years, people would be like, oh, I'm very interested in that because I care about the lore. Do you think it got to that point? I think it's like right there, but I don't know if it got over that hump. What do you think?
Unfortunately, the most interesting thing I've seen about the lore is after you beat it for the first time. Like you have to finish that game to get to the very interesting stuff.
Yes.
So And the big problem was from beginning to that point was not as interesting as they needed it to be. So what kind of these really good updates better be for that onboarding. If you're going to consider the entire first run of this game from a lore perspective onboarding, you need to make that first part more interesting. You need to fill these planets with more things. You need to give the players more things to do. I loved the concept of Starfield, and I loved a lot of what they did here. But yes, it didn't quite get where it wanted to be, and it's still not there. I don't mean to laugh, but the fact that he says that really good updates are coming soon.
Really good updates.
And the chat just went, where were they? Like, what have you been doing?
Well, they wanted to get the really bad ones out of the way first when they were making the game, then do the really good stuff. That's just the game development.
Exactly. But like, so I think that there is potential here. I don't think it's a lost cause yet. I like the fact that they're going to come in and do updates. That you said Starfield TV show, and I instantly perked up because that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I think I'd prefer the Mass Effect show first, but that's just me.
Well, yeah.
If they're considering, if they want to update this game and try and use things to bring people back, go for it, right? But for some, as I'm seeing in the chat right here, it's too late, right? They tried it, they gave them a shot, and it's not happening. Sorry, they're done. They're moving on to other things. So, is Pandora's box already open? Could be. I would be willing to go back and give it a shot if these really good updates are indeed really good. But there are other games on the horizon that do similar things. Like I said, EA is working on a new Mass Effect that might come out in 2030. Outer Worlds 2 is still out in the horizons somewhere.
Yeah, it's probably not as far off as we think, I bet.
Okay, all right. I don't want you to get in trouble with the headlines here.
Yeah, of course. That was just me guessing, everybody.
But yeah, so I'm afraid that this game, these updates might be too late, and some other titles might come in and eat its lunch.
Yeah, I think when I look back at Starfield, it's a game that I enjoyed a lot of, and then I could see the seams everywhere though, and I think the real thing that happened here was the thing I was always worried about when they were making it. It was them saying we are making a game that's going to last for 10 years, because that's not what they were saying when they were making Skyrim, and that game was a game that lasted for 10 years. It's like that was like you focused on making a game that people would be happy with when they bought it immediately, and as soon as they jumped in, they were going to be, all right, this is great. You weren't thinking about setting up this world and environment to support people who are going to come in with mods and have 20,000 daily active users on Steam or something like that for years and years beyond all that. And yet it happened anyhow. Once they shifted to be like, well, we got to replicate that again, and started thinking in that mindset, I think they kind of screwed themselves and started building a game backwards from that point of view. And by the time they got to the point where it's like, okay, well, what is the game that people are, what's the first impression going to be? They didn't nail that. And I think that was the biggest sin of Starfield by far. Because of that, I think they're in a situation where they were building this game with the idea that it would last for a very long time, and so they wouldn't be thinking about a sequel for many, many years. And so there's no chance to go back and do another one anytime soon. And I think these updates are going to come out and likely be, they'll perk things up here and there. They'll make the thing look a little bit more palatable if you were to really go back into it. I just don't think it's going to change Starfield's fortunes overall, though.
No, I think that spaceship has definitely launched to adapt the cliche. Yep. I wonder though if maybe I don't want to say a story expansion because the whole point is different stories, whatever. So I don't even know what you would do. Do you just put more things on the existing planets that people might run into, like random encounters, procedurally generated things? I'm trying to think what the best approach would be here. Even maybe new sub-stories on certain planets that weren't doing anything before. I know landing on Earth is interesting. Maybe that could be a little more interesting. Maybe you create planets in Starfield that just go to other Bethesda games for some weird crossover thing. I wouldn't even know where to begin, and that's sad.
If I were in their shoes, the thing I would focus on is revising how planets feel when you land on them. I would make a couple of those planets a little bit more barren. I would maybe reduce the number of them in total, And then I would make it so that there was like a couple more instances of like, okay, well, I did stumble across the moon that does have something very interesting here, and there's more going on there. And then for every planet you land on, I would completely rework what it feels like from going from your ship to the thing that is interesting. I would just shrink everything down so much because the 5-minute walk, the 5 to 10 minute walk to get to the thing that you're trying to get to, because when you land, it's like, we're going to put you here, and then we're automatically going to space out all the important waypoints procedurally, so that you have to walk over there. It's like that completely kills the pace of that game. It was such a bad decision, and then having no fast way to get across those landscapes with vehicles or anything like that. And then later on, I would like fix up base building, make that matter more, stuff like that. But we'll see. Apparently, there is a story expansion included in the like special edition, so that they have to make one of those. They probably have it well on its way, but yeah, there will be a story expansion at some point. I do wonder what that looks like.
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. Starfield it's an interesting one, but like as soon as everyone kind of got back into Fallout, I did start Fallout New Vegas. I'm like, yeah, God, the vibes around this are just so much better. It's so much nicer to be in this world that is fleshed out, well thought out, especially New Vegas that I'm really enjoying so far. Yes, but I like 3 and 4 a ton as well. I played a little bit of 4 when I was getting that set up for Mike to play with all the mods. I'm just like, yeah, maybe let's just let Starfield lie. Is kind of where I would end up on this.
If anybody's developing a Fallout project, be it, I know we've talked about 5 a bit this week, but like if there's a side project going on that they haven't announced yet, or something Fallout to tie into they better be fast tracking that right now if they weren't already, because Fallout is hotter than it's been in years, and not capitalizing on that from a game perspective, other than people just going back and playing old games, would be, in my opinion, a massive missed opportunity. And just one more thing, the fact that we're talking about Starfield and sidetrack to Fallout tells you everything you need to know about the Starfield conversation.
And I think that's exactly where everyone is. I mean, we like held off there. I would have talked about Fallout 5 seconds into that conversation, but we held off. We were pretty responsible there. I'm proud of us, Jason.
Me too.
Boy, I'd rather be playing Fallout. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Super Nintendo World's Donkey Kong Country Park delayed to late 2024. This is the park in Japan, of course. This is from Jim Norman at Nintendo Life. It was right at the end of 2023 that Universal Studios announced the opening date for its Donkey Kong Country Park at Super Nintendo World Japan. It was supposed to be this spring, any day now, we would assume, but instead the studio has announced that the opening has been pushed back to late 2024. The delay was announced by Universal Studio Japan on Twitter, with the notice giving no indication of why the opening had been delayed, but confirming that more details would be coming in the future when they are ready. We've been seeing some videos come out of the park, and like the minecart roller coaster track being tested, and that looking pretty cool. I bet they're like looking at a bunch of things. We're like, we want to make a ton of tweaks, get this just right, and that's the kind of thing that can push these things back months. I would assume. I'm not a park guy in terms of like paying attention to this stuff. This doesn't seem too abnormal to me, though. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I'm 100% with you on that. Being a fellow Disney miscreant like Mr. Mike Minotti. We see this stuff all the time. Like they announce something and they push it back because they found maybe a flaw they weren't anticipating, or they want to add something different or something like that. So it makes perfect sense to me that this is something that's going to happen for Donkey Kong Country, that lazy monkey. I was getting very nostalgic looking at that minecart roller coaster, man. It looks really awesome. And honestly, with Super Mario World and now this, the most nostalgic thing about it, and maybe you'll agree with me on this, is having to wait from when Japan gets it to when we get it in America.
Yeah,
it goes right back to the old localization days where you see all these people, and even like California to Orlando, right? Because I don't know if I'm going to get to Universal in California. Orlando's a little bit easier for me. So seeing all these people having all these fun, all these great rides, and me being like, yep, here I am, Philadelphia. I don't know when I'll get to try it. But luckily, maybe this delay will sort of lessen that for Japanese park goers versus American park goers, and they figure out what's going on with this, and they can move it over here faster, at least to California, and we can all enjoy it a little bit sooner. And I do worry that the fact that they're being so vague means that there's some sort of safety flaw, right? Like there's some really big issue, but I guess not mentioning that makes sense too, because they wanted to open in late 2024 without them having to go, yep, we fixed it. That thing we announced, it's all good now.
And I would assume like safety flaws are very common. Like that's like,
Yes.
you know, you've got a bunch of machinery going through on things and it's like, okay, yeah, we measured all these things out. If you're off by a couple of millimeters, I assume sometimes it's like, we can imagine a world in which this kills someone 1 out of a billion times. Let's just fix that. I could easily see that. I think they're just doing their due diligence. So yeah, they probably just like, hey, we're going to fix this up, have it ready to go. And then by the time it's opened, we're 100% sure that it's safe and fun and all the things that actually matter. Yeah, and Orlando is opening up like early next year, right? I think it is like 2025 for Super Nintendo World. That sounds right.
In Florida,
to me.
that sounds right. I think it's spring 2025, because I know my family and I are planning a trip. We're planning a trip to Disney World this September, and it will not be open yet. So I think we immediately said we're going to be planning another trip in 2025 so I can scoot over to Universal and become a kid for a little while. But yeah, so yes, 2025 does make sense. Spring, I think, too. I don't know if they put an actual month on it yet. I think it's just spring.
Spring, that sounds right.
But yeah, that sounds right.
I'm excited about all of this. It's like, boy, when are they going to expand beyond like the Mario Donkey Kong stuff? I mean, I think Zelda is pretty much on the table for Orlando. Yeah. Those are the rumors. But it's like, are they? I don't need attractions, the big attractions for everything. But when I went to Super Nintendo World in California, and it was like, okay, it really is just all Mario stuff, and really it's just kind of Mario Kart and then generic Mario merch. And you know, the Mario themed restaurant and stuff like that. It's like, okay, I wouldn't mind if there was like a cart here or there that referenced a couple of these other games that aren't ever going to get their own ride, or if the store didn't just have Mario Kart and Mario stuff, if there was the chance to see something from Star Tropics or whatever else, that would be pretty cool. I hope they can get to that point here relatively soon, where it's like, okay, yeah, you came here for Mario, but this is Nintendo World, and you can get all kinds of different Nintendo stuff here. I think that'd be pretty neat. In like smaller experiences, nothing huge. I'm not expecting a roller coaster based on Star Fox even.
Right. They have to have in storage somewhere all of the old E3 booth props they used to bring. Just put like Luigi's Mansion, put the Gooigi guy there, take a picture with him. There was I think a Pikmin 3, or it was a Pikmin, had within Pikmin 3 because Pikmin 4 wasn't even announced yet. You could take a picture with the Pikmin.
Yeah.
Bring those out. Just let them for photo ops. If you want to make it one of those, I know it's Disney term, it's not Universal term, but memory maker, where you take a picture with the Pikmin and then there'll be a couple on your shoulder. You know, stuff like that. All that opportunity is there. You just got to go through the storage facility, see what you have, where you can fit it in the park. I agree with that 100%. And a good place to do it is if you're connecting Super Nintendo World with Donkey Kong World, put it in the connection. Make that walkway a little more interesting. It makes perfect sense to me.
Yep. And I get why that wouldn't happen in California and stuff like that. They just have such little space. They're trying to maximize all of it. But, you know, Orlando, let's make it happen. All right. This is a story just for me. You will get to play Sabacc in the Star Wars Outlaws game from Ubisoft. This is from Jonas Mackey at Game Reactor. It's actually very strange in these times when every other major adventure introduces its own card game that we've never got to play Sabacc in a Star Wars adventure video game before. We've known about the game since the early 80s. It was first mentioned in the 1983 novel Lando Calrissian and the Mine Harp of Sharu. And of course, it's most famous for Han Solo winning the Millennium Falcon in a round with Lando Calrissian, something we actually got to see in Solo, a Star Wars story from 2018. But now we will finally get to play Sabacc ourselves, as Massive Entertainment offers Sabacc gambling in the upcoming Star Wars Outlaws. I always like a card game in Star Wars because it does remind me of Sabacc, which is like something like comes up in the extended universe novels all the time, and then it did find its way into Solo. But every card game in Star Wars is always like, we're not going to really make Sabacc. We're going to make our own thing. What's the one in Knights of the Old Republic called? Pazak? Something like that.
Something like that. It's been a while.
Yeah. And it's like, so yeah, this is pretty cool that they're actually going to try to translate that. And I definitely, like, a big part of this is like one of my favorite book series when I was young was the Han Solo trilogy. And the Sabacc card game, like, really was a big part of that. So I have like some of the rules up in my head, like the cards randomly shift every once in a while at completely random intervals, but you could put them in an interference field, and that stops them from changing. So you're trying to get an idiot's array, which is like a certain series of cards, and the only way to do that is to like lock them down and then maybe wait for one of your cards to change and then play your hand right then. It sounds pretty cool. I wonder how it, like, what it was like to take something that was written for stories and turn it into an actual game that you play, because that doesn't always work, right? That's why we haven't seen it before up to this point, right?
Correct. And I think that this is also an indication of just how deep into the vault Massive was allowed to go, that they were able to bring this back. Because as you said, it's been referenced a couple of times, but it was much more prevalent in the extended universe. And they've been very cautious about what they've brought out of the extended universe since basically cutting it off when they bought it, when they bought the Star Wars franchise. So seeing it here now is very cool. And I think it may even give it a little more universal appeal, that you might start to see it again, not just in Solo, but maybe in some of the side projects on Disney Plus or in the films. It's a good place to introduce it. If Queen's Blood is any indication, in-game card games are a lot of fun, and people like playing them. So it makes perfect sense in the setting of the game. It makes sense for a franchise as a whole. It definitely reeks of Disney synergy. I would love to know, if I ever get a chance to talk to these devs, I would love to get into that process of figuring out those rules, figuring out how to translate it into and make it playable for the character, or for the players playing the game, excuse me. Just how much detail they were allowed to glean from there's got to be some sort of like master Star Wars lore, under lock and key in Mickey's house. So I wonder if they were allowed to go in there and flip through the book and see how Sabacc is supposed to be and make it into this into Star Wars Outlaws. It's a great idea. And it's better, as you said, than making a brand new one, go reference an older one to bring in that nostalgia factor too. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and I'm like, another new card game would have been fine. I'm sure there's infinite card games in the universe of Star Wars, sure. But to have a chance to finally play Sabacc in a game, especially one that I think feels very reminiscent of the kinds of stories where Sabacc originally showed up. Like, that Lando Calrissian story is a story about an outlaw, Lando Calrissian, and the Han Solo trilogy is all about him when he was a smuggler and when he was, working for the Hutts and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, and this is the game that reminds me most of what I felt reading those stories. So I'm like, the chance for them to actually deliver on this as well. It's like one more checkbox for me personally. When I'm like, okay, they're making the game that I always imagined could be possible. We'll see. I'll get my hands on it, and we'll discover at that point. I don't envy them, like, as you said, trying to figure out that process of like, how do you make the rules honest to those stories, and at the same time still like an interesting risk reward thing. I always think of Golden Snitch. What's the broom game? Yeah, Quidditch. Yes, Quidditch. I always think of Quidditch. They're making a Quidditch video game. I don't know if that came out yet or not. It's like, that is such a bad sport. Like, it's just not a good idea, because the gold snitch is worth so many more points, and it's like that ends the game as well. And it's like, even in like one of the story books, she's like, we're gonna have one of the characters like get the golden snitch just because he wanted his team to stop losing so much, and their team was behind so much they still lost. It's like, yeah, that not an interesting sport. This would never work in real life. But still, they're gonna try to make it into a video game. We'll see how that goes.
Yep.
All right. Up next, the Epyx Collection handheld, and that's at the Epyx Collection handheld, is coming soon to Switch. This is from Nintendo Everything. According to an eShop listing, the Epyx Collection handheld will soon be made available on the Switch. This marks another classic release from Pixel Games, which includes Blue Lightning, California Games, Electro Cop, Gates of Zindokan, Todd's Adventure in Slime World, and Zarler Mercenary. Then they're all part of the collection. These are a lot of games that like showed up on Lynx, and I think a few showed up on Game Gear here and there. But that Blue Lightning game is actually a really surprisingly good arcade jet fighter game. Looks a lot like Afterburner, but it was available for the Lynx. And it looks impressive for like when it came out in the 1980s. And I'm excited that a lot of these games are finally getting a chance to like come out on a platform that a lot of people have. Most people probably still won't pay attention to it, but I've always been like, oh man, that Blue Lightning game is very fun. And then of course, California Games is a classic. And I think this is the Lynx version of that as well. And that's fine. I always wanted an Atari Lynx as a kid. I'm glad my parents didn't actually end up getting me one, because it would have been like a nightmare trying to find batteries all the time.
Yes.
But I still always wanted one. I don't know. Any of these games do anything for you, Jason?
Not particularly. Admittedly, with the exception of California games, I had not heard of most of these. Blue Lightning was kind of fringe, but California games is the only one I ever actually heard of. But I am all about restoration and preservation. So the fact that there could be games in here that I decide that I do like after having never heard of them before, and being able to play them for the first time. I will now try Blue Lightning because you mentioned it. Electro Cop sounds very similar to a certain other cop of robotic nature. I'm not sure where the line is drawn there. But yeah, in California games, I did play. Was it also on like Genesis too? I feel like it was on another.
Oh yeah, it was on a lot of stuff, definitely.
So I definitely would play that too. To play the Lynx version would be pretty neat. Honestly, I wouldn't mind more of these collections from older consoles or handhelds that I never had. I also wanted a Lynx as a kid just because I always read about it in GamePro.
Yeah.
And was like, oh, I want all the video games. And we couldn't afford everything, obviously. So again, I'm glad my parents didn't do that either. We made that big 32X. We did not make it again. But yeah. But yeah, this is cool. Anytime older games can be preserved and restored like this for a new audience, even if that new audience is just like me, you, and a couple other older folks, older folks, not old folks, that's fine with me. Let's see what Todd's Adventures in Slime World are all like.
Yeah, we got to find out for ourselves. I have no idea what that game is. So yeah, absolutely.
Not a clue.
And I'm like, I of course I like it when things show up on the subscription services I already have. So it's like if all these showed up on the Atari Leagues console getting added to Nintendo Switch Online, of course I think that's preferable. But I still like that it's like, okay, a lot of these companies are like, it's not worth us to make that deal with Nintendo. It's not quite enough money. But we will put it as its own collection on a Switch or anywhere else and sell it to you that way with, like a handful of games, and it'll be like $30. I don't know what the price of this is, but I imagine it's not going to be much more than that. And it's like, okay, I am okay with that as well. As long as there's some incentive for you to either do it on Switch Online or in a bundle, like the Castlevania Advance Collection. So yeah, we're not going to get those on NSO because you're going to sell them to us. You're right. You should. Those games own. You deserve to have extra money for those. They are that good. So I'm like fully on board with this style of doing collections as well. And of course, we've always had collections, but it feels like we're getting very specific with them these days, where it's like the Epyx Collection handheld is not something you would have found on the PS1 forever ago, right?
No. I feel like some companies are now experimenting with nostalgia and seeing other collections and seeing just how obscure they can get with these things before the well dries up. Are we going to see like a Cyberflix connection of like Titanic and Rust, or not Rust, Dust, and all those old FMV point-and-click adventures at some point? Yeah, let's do that. But yeah, I don't know how deep this well goes, but the fact that companies are now going to try this, yeah, why not? I'm in.
All right, last story here. Playdate's catalog has sold 150,000 games, earning developers more than $544,000. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. Playdate manufacturer Panic has announced that the handheld's built-in store, the catalog, it's called Catalog, has sold more than 150,000 games. Catalog arrived on Playdate in March 2023 and allowed developers to sell their own games through the handheld itself. There are now 181 games on Catalog with an average game price of $5.36. Panic says more than $544,000 has been paid to the developers since Catalog launched. Okay. So this is the kind of thing where they put out an infographic of this. They are like chirping this. They're like, hey, we did this. This is a cool thing. And I think that's probably accurate, that this is like way more than they ever expected to do with the Playdate. Because people might not remember when the Playdate was announced, it was, we are going to sell you this thing, and every 2 weeks you're going to get a game or two downloaded onto it from the internet that we've already finished as part of a season. And then we might do a season 2. It was never going to have a store. That was never the idea. It's like, you could sideload stuff. They're like, hey, no, if you want, you can go get stuff off the internet that people make for the Playdate and sideload it for free, or buy it on itch or something like that, however they want to sell it. But you could sideload it yourself, and you could still do that, of course. But they were like, oh, at a certain point, there's enough interest here. Maybe we should just have our store and try to see if we can get some developers on there. So that $544,000 is like literally an infinite amount more than what they were expecting to do when they launched this thing. So I think in that light, this is just nothing but a success, right?
Correct. I think the fact that it's such a unique niche thing, and it sold like this, they have to be, clicking their heels and jumping out of their seats. This is amazing. The fact that developers alone have pulled in $500K for their games and only 181 of them exist, that sort of math is very, very impressive. The gentleman's name eludes me. He put a game just on this. The Papers, Please guy. Is that Lucas Pope?
The Papers, Please guy. I know. I'm trying to think of it too.
The name of the game eludes
Lucas
me.
Pope. Lucas Pope. Yes.
Yeah, that is the game I'm most interested in. I've not held one of these yet, but I've seen one or two out in the wild. It looks kind of cool. It looks unique.
Yeah,
look,
I like it.
Look at you.
Yeah, got it right
look
there.
At you.
This is my second one because I lost and broke my first one in my move across the country, and then they did another round like, hey, you guys want one? I'm like, I broke my last one. Can I get another one? So they sent this to me a few months later, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Keep meaning to buy the Lucas Pope game because I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah,
it's I have some friends that are like in the scene for the Playdate, right? They like work with developers that make games for this thing, and it's like it does seem like a small little passion that they're doing on the side. Lucas Pope didn't have to make a game for this. That's amazing that he did, and it's apparently like I said, people seem to really like it. So it's like it's that kind of thing where people who make the interesting fun games that we talk about at the end of the year, where like this came out of nowhere, it's game of the year material, they are making stuff for something like this, or they have in the past. And so the Playdate continues to be an interesting thing for me, even if it's not ever going to be the thing I'm turning on every day. It is like the occasional fun distraction, and you could see some interesting new ideas from developers that have made a ton of cool stuff in the past.
Chat has set us straight. Mars After Midnight.
Mars After Midnight. That's it right there. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you, chat. Appreciate you. But yeah, I would like to, try it and hold it first before I actually take the plunge. If I don't know if they have more, if they're just open for sale now or how that works. But it definitely is intriguing because it's like you said, it's not going to be something you pick up and play every single day, but it is something that when a new game comes out for it, you'll get a couple of hours of, unique, fun experiences that you can only find on this device. Sorry, the amount of people in chat saying that you need to crank it on stream for everyone is
you got to crank it on stream, Jason. What's the problem?
I don't have I'm not finishing that.
Oh, okay.
Yo. Oh, jeez. No respect. But yeah, so congratulations to the Playdate. It is awesome that it's having this run. I'll get in there eventually, I promise. And Panic should be very, very happy with what they've seen so far, as far as sales and money earned and everything like that. Very, very cool. Kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the very first segment with Kindgom Come. Kind of very cool to see something come out of sort of nowhere, try a brand new, unique thing, and have success like this. It's awesome, and in an industry that recently has been very, and rightfully so, filled with negative, sort of depressing sort of stories. To see little successes like this, it kind of reminds you why we do this to begin with, right?
Absolutely.
A couple of spotlights here and there are nice amidst all of the calamity and woe.
Yes. So some light amongst the clouds for sure. It's and it's also nice to me to just see that like something small and not trying to be part of the like big video game industry machine can succeed. It's like, no, we're going to do our own thing off to the side, and it's not going to be we're not going to be yet another place for you to play your PC games, and it's not yet another thing people are going to be porting games that already exist to. It's like, no, if they want to make a game specifically for this thing, like we will provide them the platform to do that. Sure. And maybe they'll sell a handful of games enough to make it worth their while. And it seems like that's the way it's working out. And I continue to be pretty impressed by what they did with the Playdate.
Oh.
All right, let's get to the poll question. Actually, you know what? We have a little bit of time. If anyone wants to ask a question, let's do a Grubb Snacks, a special little Grubb Snacks. Use the Ask a Question button here on giantbomb.com/chat, or if you're in Twitch, just drop your question there in chat. I should be able to see it. But we'll answer your questions real quick before we get to the poll. So if you want to get that going, Feel free to drop that in there, and I'll get things set up. While we're waiting, Jason, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, all that good stuff?
Yes. So at Big Man Fanelli on Twitter and other socials, just did a guest spot on the Fun and Games podcast, a podcast run by Matt Storm, who's like a video editor for Game Informer, and another person whose name I cannot remember right now. I'm so sorry, other person. But they have a side gig where they have people come on and they just talk themselves about a game that they like. And I mentioned Cyberflix because my episode went live today, and I talk about the 1996 point-and-click adventure Titanic: Adventure Out of Time, which is an amazing retro. Like it's a very hard game to explain, but it's so fun and eerie and historically accurate. Like they went in and built the ship like from scratch, some 3D, some 2D. You can even, if you're not playing the game, you could just tour it. And like the people who stop motion FMV, yes, that's exactly what it is. And like you can just tour the ship, and the people who are in the like the characters in the game will narrate stuff about the ship to you. Cool. But then the actual adventure is like you go back and you're a disgraced British Secret Service agent who goes back in time to right his wrong, and you're like using clues and solving puzzles to find these relevant items. And then once you do that, like it's go listen to it over at Fun and Games Podcast. I talk about it for 20 minutes, and it's if you can play it on good old games, or more appropriately Steam, because it is a steamboat. Go check that out. If you're in the Philadelphia, I'm gonna pitch this. If you're in the Philadelphia area for the next 2 weekends, if you go to stfrancisplayers.org, that is the theater group. St. Francis Players. We open the Music Man tonight 7:00, tomorrow 7:00, Sunday 2:00, same schedule next week. Tickets are available on that website there. You come see me sing the high tenor in the barbershop quartet. Got that high voice going.
Real quick though, if you go there and you're going to applaud for Jason, do not yell "Giant Bomb" in a crowded theater, everybody. Please, on my behalf, don't do that.
Oh God, don't do that. Because I'll laugh and a couple other guys will laugh, but everyone else will be like, "What?" But if you do show up after the show, the cast does come out to greet the audience. If you can say "Giant Bomb sent you," and I will shake your hand and give you a high five and maybe a picture.
Perfectly okay.
But yeah, Giant Bob sent you would be awesome. But if you can't do that, I completely understand. But you can also find me writing news on GameSpot and MMORPG, a couple of things going on there. And yeah, that's what I'm doing.
All right, we got some of these Grubb snack questions. Get these real quick. Let's see. DMCD23 asks, "What's your favorite color?" Jason.
Green.
My favorite color continues and will forever be gray, no matter how much everyone tries to shame me for that.
He's just saying that because it's slowly taking over his head.
That's right. Exactly. I'm trying to embrace it before that comes for me. Let's see. Scrub McGrub. How many more generations does physical media have left? Just saw Target is doing away with it next. I mean, it's going to depend on the specific medium. But I bet the next Xbox and PlayStation console generations launch without disk drives built in. They will sell them separately still, but they will not be built in. From like the main model will not have a disk drive built in. What do you think, Jason?
I agree. I think disk drives are slowly going away. And it's over. It's what they wanted in 2013. They were Microsoft was a little early, but it's cloud streaming, it's direct downloads. As much as I love physical media, it's just a thing of the past. So unless they're going to start putting games on USB drives or cartridges of that sort, I think disk drives are a thing of the past, as much as I hate to say it.
Let's see. Let's go with One Winged Zero on Twitch. Says, any plans to play more PS1 games? Yeah, all the time. I always want to be playing more PS1 games, games from that generation. We definitely got some momentum going about wanting to do a license to thrill here pretty soon, where we'll play some more licensed games. PS1 is rife with that, so
yes,
we'll get some more PS1 games up on the site pretty soon for sure.
When are you going to play Croc Legend of the Gobos?
I would love to play Croc Legend of the Gobos.
Curse Splat, baby.
Sandwich Jones, is the Skate reboot safe? EA's dropping games like flies. I don't know. I haven't checked recently. I think so. I'll look into it, see what I can find out, and let you know. And then Crooked View asks, you all played Deep Rock Survivor at all? I'm enjoying it a lot on my Steam Deck. I've not. I was going to play that and that Geometry Wars survival game. That's like Vampire Survivors. Both came around the same time, and I think they kind of canceled each other out in my brain. I didn't play either one, but I will get around to checking that out. I also never really spent that much time with like Shoot, Deep Rock Survivor, or Deep Rock Galactic, and I've been meaning to do that. Yeah, and Always Be Clothing wants to know, do I have any comments on the Mount Rushmore of furries that made by one Jeff Grubb's Game Mess last night? I will have to come in and be pretty stern with what they did while I was busy last night and couldn't do my own show. So we'll get in there, fix things. Daddy's home now, everybody. You guys better button up. All right, let's see here. Poll question. Let's get to it. That's not a poll question. What is that? That's my personal files there of Adam Boys. Let me go over here instead. Have you ever played a Mafia game? Yes or no? 56% said yes. 44% said no. As usually, I'm like, hey, that's quite a bit of people. Like 56% are like, yeah, I played a Mafia game before. And I suppose that is why they're making a new one, right? If you get over that threshold where like 2.7 thousand people ask, like, hey, or they say, yeah, 56% like, yeah, I've played one of those before. Once you reach that threshold, I bet it's like, it's got that name recognition. We should just go back to that, right?
Yeah, I wonder how many, if you were to just extrapolate that data a little more, how many of those, if you said, which one did you play, it would be. Because I feel like stop doing that.
Adam Boys is coming for you.
Adam Boys is coming for you. I feel like, what is going on with my camera here? I feel like Mafia 2 was the most popular of the three. That's the only one that I've played.
That sounds right.
So maybe I'm a little biased. I will say playing Mafia 2 is kind of like going to a family reunion in a sense. Just because everyone's like, hey, capisce, what's the matter with you? It's like everyone fighting over pasta at the table. I'm not in the Mafia, I promise. But I'm hoping they do, and I hope they go back to the old school. Like yesterday when you were talking about it, Chad, I kept saying the Godfather of the game because I think the Godfather of the game is the best Mafia game. I loved that game. I liked Mafia 2, but I liked Godfather better. I thought the open world was better. So I'm hoping if they do go back to Mafia, it's more of like a classic old school Mafia gangster sort of film, but in a game feel. Mafia 3, as much as fun as it looked, admittedly I did not play it, and I feel like maybe I should in case this new one is coming.
Yeah, I think I never gave Mafia 3 a chance either. I might give that one a shot. Although that's in the same zone as something like a Mad Max with me, and I never played that. I'm like, Mad Max is the one I really want to go back to. But who knows?
Surprisingly good
for everything. Yeah, exactly. I bet that game's way better than I ever even thought it was.
Hey, Furiosa's coming out. Sounds like something you should stream, my man.
Good idea. Synergy right there. Well, huzzah. One last question. Says, yo, Jason, if we're in the area, where can we check out the Music Man show? And are we allowed to tailgate? I know you said, but go ahead and say it again where people can find that.
stfrancisplayers.org, and the ticket link is on that website there. Tailgating, I can't tell you what to do or not do, but I will say...
They say here they're going to do it anyway.
Oh, well, okay. It is a parking lot of a church, so you may get some looks. We use the gym of a Catholic elementary school. That's our theater. So, if the priest comes out, just give him a sandwich. I'll be fine. Don't do it. If anyone's watching from St. Francis right now, I am not advocating that anybody tailgates our show.
Absolutely. Completely innocent.
Yeah. But stfrancisplayers.org is where you can find that.
I got a new poll question. Did you play Kindgom Come Deliverance? Yes or no? We'll get to that on Monday on Game Us Mornings. I'm trying to think if there's any reason I would be able to do a show on Monday. No, we should be back on Monday with more here on Giant Bomb. Speaking of Giant Bomb, later today, UPF, not much later after this, about an hour, we're going to get back into content warning. I'm going to see if we can get it set up in the time that we have for more than 4 players. If we can't, we'll just play that game with 4 players. We'll see who can play. But if we can get everybody in there, we will. I think the way it works is you have to have a server set up. So I might take my Pal World server that I think I still have for another month or so and convert that over to a content warning server. We'll see. Yeah, it'll take a little setup. And then after that, we are going to do our first of what should be the regular cadence of Power Bombcast going forward. Look out for that. That'll be in the BCR slot instead this week. So,
love that idea.
Time. Yeah, very excited about it. Jason, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I really appreciate it.
I am always happy to be here, Jeff. Whenever you need me, just say the word, and I am here, baby.
We will make it happen. Dougman asks, will Grubb do a watch party of Rebel Moon Part 2? I might. Man, that first one was so bad. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. I'm like kind of obsessed with how bad it is. So maybe. We'll see, Dougman. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.
See you later.